We live in a world that constantly demands a reaction, a world that pushes you to explain yourself, defend your choices, prove your worth, and justify your silence. People want answers, they want access, they want control, and most of all, they want you emotionally available on demand. But the Stoic understands something most people never learn. Not everything deserves a response. Not everyone deserves an explanation, and not every battle deserves your energy. Most people give their power away without realizing it. They react too quickly. They speak too much. They let emotions make decisions for them. They confuse movement with progress and noise with strength. But Stoicism teaches a quieter path, a disciplined path, a grounded path, a path where control begins not with the world, but with the self. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca all understood this truth. Your life is shaped less by what happens to you and more by how you respond to it, or whether you respond at all. Today, we are going to walk through 14 Stoic principles that have the power to fundamentally change how you think, act, and carry yourself through the world. These are not motivational slogans. These are mental laws, tested through suffering, leadership, exile, and loss. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by people, drained by expectations, or trapped in emotional reactions that don't serve you, this is where the shift begins. Before we begin, take one moment, like this video if it already resonates. Subscribe for weekly Stoic insight, and stay present because one principle, applied correctly, can change how you live forever. Let's begin. Principle number 1. Separate what is yours from what is not. Each morning before the noise of the world reaches us, we stand at a quiet crossroads. One path leads inward, toward the small territory that truly belongs to us. The other stretches outward toward events, people, outcomes, and forces we will never command. Most suffering begins when we confuse these paths. Peace begins when we learn to tell them apart. What belongs to us is narrow, but it is powerful. Our judgments, our intentions, our choices, our response to what happens. Everything else, reputation, success, failure, praise, rejection, even the moods of those we love, exists beyond our control. When we demand ownership over what was never ours, the mind fractures into anxiety and resentment. One ancient voice warned us plainly, some things are up to us and some things are not. This is not a comforting thought, it is a ruthless one. It strips away excuses. It exposes how often we hand our inner freedom to chance. The morning becomes our training ground, where we reclaim what we surrendered yesterday. We wake and immediately feel the urge to control the day, how others will treat us, how events should unfold, how life must obey our plans. This urge is the root of emotional slavery. The moment we hinge our peace on externals, we become fragile. We rise calm only to fall apart by noon. So we practice a harder discipline. We say, "This is mine to govern, that is not." We do not deny reality. We do not retreat from responsibility. We simply refuse to argue with the universe. As one emperor philosopher wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Anger loses its grip when we see it clearly. It is born when we expect others to act according to our will. Fear dissolves when we stop demanding certainty from the future. Envy fades when we recognize that another person's fortune was never part of our inner ledger. Each destructive emotion collapses when its false claim is exposed. This principle does not make us passive, it makes us precise. We act fully where action is ours, speaking honestly, choosing courage, practicing restraint. And where action is not ours, we release the clenched fist of expectation. We trade outrage for clarity, panic for resolve. A teacher once said that we are disturbed not by things themselves, but by the judgments we form about them. This is not philosophy for bookshelves. It is a tool for survival. Every morning we rehearse this truth before the world tests us again. When the day brings insult, delay, loss, or uncertainty, we return to the boundary. We ask, is this within my command? If yes, we respond with discipline. If no, we respond with dignity. This single question becomes our shield. Master this separation, and life changes quietly but permanently. The chaos outside may remain, but it no longer rules us. We become steady where others shatter, calm where others burn, free, not because the world bends to us, but because we no longer bend our inner world to the uncontrollable. Principle number 2, govern the inner voice before it governs you. After we learn to separate what is ours from what is not, a deeper challenge reveals itself. Inside us lives a constant narrator, interpreting, judging, exaggerating, condemning. This voice speaks before reason can intervene. If left untrained, it becomes the true tyrant of our lives. Each morning we rise not to silence it, but to bring it under command. Most people believe emotions strike from the outside. They are mistaken. What reaches us from the world is neutral. What wounds us is the story we tell ourselves about it. A delayed message becomes rejection. A harsh word becomes an insult. A setback becomes proof of failure. The inner voice turns raw events into emotional storms. One ancient teacher put it simply, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. This insight is devastating in its clarity. It means that emotional chaos is not imposed upon us, it is constructed within us. And what is constructed can be dismantled. The untrained inner voice speaks in absolutes, always, never, everyone, no one. It rushes to conclusions and feeds on fear. It drags the past into the present and projects catastrophe into the future. When we obey it blindly, we live as prisoners of our own commentary. So we practice a daily discipline. We pause. We interrogate our impressions before accepting them as truth. Is this event truly harmful or merely unpleasant? Is this fear justified or imagined? This pause is small, but it is where freedom is born. A Roman thinker once reminded himself, remove the judgment and you remove the I am hurt. Remove the I am hurt and the harm disappears. This is not denial, it is precision. Pain may exist, but suffering requires our consent. We learn to withdraw that consent. This practice is hardest in moments of provocation, when anger surges, when pride is wounded, when anxiety tightens its grip. That is why the morning matters. We train the mind in calm so it does not betray us in chaos. We decide in advance who will be in charge. Over time, the inner voice changes its tone. It becomes slower, more restrained, less dramatic. We stop narrating our lives like a tragedy and begin treating events as exercises. Each challenge becomes a test of composure, not a threat to identity. This does not make us cold or unfeeling. It makes us exact. We still feel sadness, frustration, disappointment, but they pass through us without overruling us. We experience emotion without surrendering authority. When we govern the inner voice, the world loses its power to provoke us at will. We are no longer dragged by every thought that appears. We choose which judgments deserve belief. And in that choice, repeated each morning, we reclaim sovereignty over our inner world. Principle number 3, make peace with impermanence before it breaks you. Once we learn to command our judgments, another truth waits for us in the quiet of the morning. Nothing we touch is meant to stay. Every comfort, every role, every relationship, even the body we inhabit is on loan. We do not lose peace because things change. We lose it because we demand that they never do. We move through life as though permanence were the default setting. We expect health to last, affection to remain, stability to hold. Then the inevitable arrives, and we call it tragedy. But the tragedy is not change itself. The tragedy is our refusal to prepare for it. One ancient voice warned with stark honesty, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is not a morbid thought, it is a clarifying one. It strips illusion from the day and forces us to value what is present without clinging to it. When we forget impermanence, we grow entitled, we cling, we panic at loss, we interpret change as injustice. But when we remember it, gratitude replaces entitlement. Every moment becomes a gift instead of a guarantee. This awareness does not make us detached from life. It makes us more honest participants in it. We love deeply, but without illusion. We work diligently, but without arrogance. We enjoy pleasure, but without addiction. We treat all externals as travelers passing through our hands. A wise teacher once advised that when we kiss a loved one, we should silently remind ourselves, this is a mortal being, not to dampen affection, but to purify it. Love becomes fuller when it is free from denial. Presence becomes sharper when it is not clouded by false permanence. Each morning we rehearse loss, not to suffer in advance, but to reduce surprise. We imagine things leaving us so that when they do not tear us apart. Prepared minds bend, unprepared ones shatter. This practice hardens us against despair without making us bitter. We learn to accept endings without resentment and beginnings without arrogance. Change becomes a rhythm instead of a threat. Destructive emotions weaken when impermanence is understood. Fear fades when we stop demanding certainty. Grief softens when we remember that nothing was promised. Anger dissolves when we realize the world never signed a contract with our expectations. To live in harmony with impermanence is to walk lightly through life. We stop grasping, we stop resisting, we stand firm in character while everything else moves, and in that balance we find a calm that no loss can fully take away. Principle number 4, choose virtue over comfort every single morning. Once we accept that nothing lasts, we face a harder question. How then should we live today? The answer is not pleasure, safety, or ease. Those are unreliable guides. The only compass that does not shift with circumstance is character. Each morning before comfort makes its demands, we choose who we will be. The world quietly trains us to seek what feels good and avoid what feels hard. This training is subtle, constant, and dangerous. Comfort dulls the edge of the mind. It whispers that tomorrow is guaranteed, that discipline can wait, that excellence is optional. We do not fall into weakness, we drift into it. A stern Roman voice reminded us, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This is virtue stripped of decoration, no applause, no convenience. Just alignment between action and principle, even when no one is watching. Virtue demands effort precisely where comfort protests. It asks us to speak when silence is easier, to restrain ourselves when indulgence is tempting, to endure when escape is available. This resistance is not punishment, it is training. The soul grows strong only under load. Every destructive emotion feeds on avoidance. Cowardice grows when we flee discomfort. Resentment grows when we choose ease over responsibility. Shame grows when we know what is right and repeatedly refuse to do it. Virtue cuts these emotions at the root. This is why the morning matters. We decide early that we will not negotiate with weakness later. We set a standard before fatigue, fear, or desire begins its arguments. Discipline is easier when it is pre-decided. One philosopher warned that we should not explain our philosophy, we should embody it. Virtue is not a belief, it is a pattern of action. It shows itself in patience under insult, moderation in abundance, steadiness in uncertainty. Choosing virtue does not mean life becomes gentle. It means life becomes clear. We stop being torn apart by regret because our actions no longer betray our values. Even failure feels cleaner when it happens in the service of what is right. Over time, something unexpected happens. What once felt uncomfortable becomes natural. What once required effort becomes habit. The mind begins to prefer integrity over indulgence, strength over softness, clarity over comfort. When we choose virtue each morning, we build a life that cannot be taken from us by circumstance. Comfort fades, praise vanishes, power shifts, but character, once forged, stands firm. And in that firmness, we discover a freedom no easy life could ever provide. Principle number 5. Train for adversity before it arrives. After we choose virtue over comfort, we confront a truth most people spend their lives avoiding. Hardship is not an exception, it is the rule. The question is never if difficulty will come, but whether we will meet it prepared or exposed. Each morning becomes a quiet training session for storms that have not yet formed. Most suffering is not caused by adversity itself, but by surprise. We are shaken because we secretly believed life owed us smooth passage. When reality contradicts that belief, the mind collapses into outrage, self-pity, or despair. Preparation dissolves this shock. One ancient mind advised us to rehearse misfortune in advance, not to become pessimistic, but to become unbreakable. To imagine loss is not to invite it, it is to reduce its power. What has been faced in thought loses its terror in reality. We train by visualizing setbacks, insults, delays, sickness, failure. Not dramatically, not emotionally, calmly. We tell ourselves, if this happens, I will endure it with dignity. This rehearsal hardens the mind without poisoning it. This practice exposes how fragile untrained emotions are. Anger assumes fairness. Fear assumes safety. Despair assumes permanence. Preparation removes these assumptions. We stop demanding that life be gentle and start demanding that we be resilient. A seasoned voice once warned that whoever expects ease is unfit for reality. Strength is built in advance, not in crisis. When difficulty arrives, it does not wait for us to prepare. It reveals who already has. Each morning, we remind ourselves that discomfort is not an enemy. It is an instructor. Resistance sharpens judgment. Delay builds patience. Loss clarifies priorities. We stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "How should I respond?" Destructive emotions weaken when adversity is expected. Panic fades when hardship feels familiar. Self-pity dissolves when struggle is normal. We suffer less, not because life improves, but because our relationship to difficulty changes. This training does not strip life of joy, it deepens it. Gratitude grows when nothing is assumed. Calm becomes possible because we no longer cling to illusions of control. We enjoy peace without fearing its end. When adversity finally arrives, and it always does, it finds us standing, not hardened into bitterness, but anchored in readiness. We do not collapse, curse, or plead. We respond. And in that response, we prove that preparation is the quiet power that turns trials into proof of inner strength. Principle number 6, reduce desire and you reduce your chains. After we train for adversity, we begin to notice something uncomfortable. Much of what we call suffering is self-inflicted. It is born not from what happens to us, but from what we crave. Desire, left unchecked, does not enrich life, it enslaves it. Each morning we confront this truth before the day tempts us again. The world teaches us to want more recognition, more comfort, more security, more pleasure. It rarely teaches us how to want less. Yet every excessive desire creates a vulnerability. Whatever we must have to feel whole now has power over us. A sharp, ancient voice warned, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Desire feeds that imagination. It paints images of what life should give us, then punishes us when reality fails to deliver. The gap between expectation and fact becomes a breeding ground for frustration and envy. We begin this discipline by examining our wants with honesty. Do I need this, or do I simply want it? If it were taken from me, would my character remain intact? These questions are not meant to deny pleasure, but to remove dependency. Reducing desire does not mean rejecting the world. It means refusing to be ruled by it. We enjoy what comes, but we do not cling. We accept what leaves, but we do not beg. As one teacher observed, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Unchecked desire fuels destructive emotions. Envy arises when we compare our lack to another's excess. Anxiety grows when we fear losing what we crave. Anger erupts when desire is obstructed. By disciplining desire, we starve these emotions at their source. Each morning we practice voluntary restraint. We choose simplicity where indulgence is easy. We delay gratification not to punish ourselves, but to remind the mind who is in command. Hunger teaches gratitude, discomfort teaches independence. A Roman thinker reminded himself that luxury weakens the soul, hardship strengthens it. When we willingly practice less, we are no longer frightened by having less. The fear of loss dissolves because we have rehearsed sufficiency. Over time, desire changes shape. It becomes quieter, more selective. We stop chasing what flatters the ego and begin valuing what steadies the mind. Contentment emerges not as resignation, but as quiet confidence. When desire is reduced, freedom expands. The world can no longer manipulate us with promises or threats. We move through life lighter, calmer, and harder to disturb. And in that restraint practiced each morning, we discover a power greater than possession, mastery over self. Principle number 7, act with purpose, not reaction. After desire loosens its grip, a new responsibility emerges: how we move through the day. Most people do not act, they react. They are pulled by moods, provoked by words, steered by impulse. We choose a different posture. Each morning we decide that our actions will be deliberate, not accidental. Reaction is fast, emotional, and careless. It answers before understanding. It strikes before measuring. It regrets after the damage is done. Purpose, by contrast, moves slowly and cleanly. It waits, it weighs, it chooses. One emperor reminded himself that we always have the option of not adding to the disturbance. This is the quiet power of restraint. We cannot stop events from occurring, but we can stop ourselves from becoming their echo. Destructive emotions thrive on reaction. Anger needs immediacy. Fear demands instant escape. Pride rushes to defend itself. When we pause, even briefly, their authority weakens. Purpose steps in where impulse once ruled. So we build a habit of delay. When insulted, we do not answer at once. When tempted, we do not rush. When praised, we do not swell. This pause is not weakness, it is sovereignty. A teacher once warned that no person is free who cannot govern themselves. Purposeful action is self-governance in motion. We choose responses that align with our values, not our momentary feelings. Each morning we remind ourselves of the kind of person we intend to be: calm under pressure, just in judgment, restrained in speech, firm in action. This intention becomes our compass when the day tries to pull us off course. Acting with purpose does not mean hesitating forever. It means striking only when the strike is clean, saying no without cruelty, saying yes without fear, moving forward without inner chaos. Over time, others notice the difference. While they are tossed by circumstances, we remain grounded. While they escalate, we de-escalate. While they regret, we stand by our choices. When we act with purpose instead of reaction, life becomes less noisy. We conserve energy. We preserve dignity. And each day, through intentional action, we step closer to a life governed not by impulse, but by reasoned strength and inner command. Principle number 8. Accept the present fully, without resistance. After we learn to act with purpose, the next discipline reveals itself quietly. Acceptance. Not passive surrender, not resignation, but clear-eyed recognition of what is. Each morning before we try to shape the day, we first meet it as it stands. Much of our inner turmoil comes from arguing with reality. We say, "This should not be happening. This is unfair. This is not how things were supposed to go." Resistance drains us. Reality remains unmoved. We suffer not because events occur, but because we refuse to stop fighting what has already arrived. A calm, ancient voice advised that we should align our will with what happens, rather than demanding that what happens align with our will. This is not weakness, it is strategic intelligence. We conserve our strength for action instead of wasting it on denial. Acceptance does not cancel effort, it clarifies it. When we accept the present fully, we see our options clearly. We stop flailing, we stop blaming, we begin responding. Destructive emotions depend on resistance. Anger feeds on "this should not be." Anxiety feeds on "what if it gets worse?" Regret feeds on "if only." Acceptance cuts these loops. The mind settles into the only place where action is possible, now. Each morning we practice saying yes to reality before it tests us. This body as it is. This situation as it stands. This limitation for now. From this grounded position, we act with far greater effectiveness. One teacher warned us not to waste life by fighting inevitability. What cannot be changed must be carried with dignity. What can be changed must be faced without illusion. Acceptance tells us which is which. When hardship comes, we do not ask why we deserve it. We ask how to meet it well. When fortune arrives, we enjoy it without clinging. Acceptance keeps us balanced in both extremes. Over time, resistance weakens and composure grows. The mind stops bracing itself against every moment. Peace becomes less fragile because it no longer depends on conditions. To accept the present fully is to stop living at war with reality. We move with the current instead of exhausting ourselves against it. And in that harmony, practiced each morning, we discover a calm strength that allows us to endure, adapt, and act without inner fracture. Principle number 9. Speak and act as though you are being watched by your highest self. After we learn to accept the present without resistance, a quieter discipline emerges, one that governs how we behave when no immediate consequence is visible. Each morning we step into the day as if an unseen witness is present, the version of ourselves we would respect without hesitation. Most failures of character do not happen in public. They happen in small, private moments, when anger goes unchecked, when laziness is indulged, when truth is bent for convenience. No crowd is needed for decay, only the absence of standards. One ancient mind advised us to imagine a wise figure observing our thoughts and actions, not to instill fear, but to sharpen conscience. When we act as though we are accountable to our highest self, excuses lose their power. Destructive emotions thrive in secrecy. Resentment festers when unexamined. Self-pity grows when indulged alone. Indiscipline survives where no inner authority challenges it. Self-observation brings these patterns into the light. Each morning we ask a simple question: would I respect myself for this choice? This question cuts through rationalizations. It exposes the difference between what is easy and what is worthy. A Roman thinker reminded himself that the soul becomes stained by careless action. We do not wait for punishment to correct ourselves. We correct ourselves to preserve integrity. This discipline does not make us rigid or joyless. It makes us aligned. We speak with intention. We act with restraint. We avoid behavior that would shrink us in our own eyes. Over time, the need for external validation weakens. Praise becomes pleasant but unnecessary. Criticism becomes informative but not devastating. Our compass no longer swings wildly with opinion. By living as though our best self is watching, we close the gap between who we are and who we admire. The performance ends. Consistency begins. When our actions can withstand the gaze of our highest self, peace follows naturally. There is no inner conflict to hide from, no regret to outrun. And in that quiet alignment practiced each morning, we experience a dignity that no circumstance can strip away. Principle number 10. Use every obstacle as raw material for strength. After we learn to answer to our highest self, the final shift begins to take shape: how we interpret resistance. Most people see obstacles as interruptions to life. We learn to see them as the substance of life itself. Each morning we prepare not for ease, but for challenge, and we do so willingly. The mind untrained in discipline asks, "Why is this in my way?" The trained mind asks, "How is this shaping me?" The obstacle does not block the path. It becomes the path. What stands in front of us is precisely what calls forth our strength. One emperor reminded himself that fire turns everything thrown into it into flame. So it is with the disciplined mind. Delay becomes patience. Insult becomes restraint. Loss becomes clarity. The raw material of difficulty is transformed into virtue. Destructive emotions collapse when obstacles are reinterpreted. Frustration fades when resistance feels purposeful. Fear weakens when challenge is expected. Helplessness disappears when we recognize our capacity to respond with excellence. Each morning we resolve not to complain when resistance appears. Complaint assumes injustice. Practice assumes opportunity. We do not ask for lighter burdens. We train for stronger backs. A wise teacher once said that difficulties show us who we truly are. Comfort hides weakness. Adversity exposes both fault and potential. When we meet hardship consciously, it becomes instruction rather than punishment. This discipline sharpens our focus. Instead of wasting energy on resentment, we invest it in adaptation. Instead of spiraling into emotion, we refine our response. The obstacle demands our best, and we deliver it. Over time, we stop fearing resistance. We come to rely on it. Without challenge, there is no proof of growth. Without friction, no polish. Without trials, no strength. Others may break under pressure. We become clearer. Where they ask for relief, we ask for mastery. Where they retreat, we advance inward. When every obstacle is treated as material for virtue, nothing is wasted. No setback is meaningless. No pain is pointless. Life stops happening to us and starts working with us, shaping a character that cannot be undone by circumstance. Principle number 11. Practice daily reflection to keep the soul aligned. After we learn to turn obstacles into strength, one final discipline becomes essential: reflection. Action without reflection leads to repetition of error. Strength without examination becomes arrogance. Each morning and each evening, we return inward to keep the soul aligned with its highest standards. Most people move through life without ever pausing to examine themselves. Days blur together, habits harden, mistakes repeat. Reflection interrupts this drift. It forces awareness where complacency would otherwise take root. One ancient teacher advised ending each day by asking 3 questions. What did I do well? What did I do poorly? What can I improve tomorrow? This practice is not self-criticism, it is self-command. Destructive emotions weaken under reflection. Guilt loses its sting when lessons are extracted. Shame dissolves when responsibility is taken. Anxiety fades when tomorrow is given direction. Each morning, reflection sets intention. We remind ourselves who we are striving to become before the world tests us. Each evening, reflection restores order. We account for our actions without excuses or cruelty. A Roman thinker warned that a life without examination is easily wasted. Reflection ensures that effort compounds instead of scattering. We refine our character the way an artisan refines their craft, through steady correction. This discipline demands honesty. We do not flatter ourselves. We do not condemn ourselves. We observe, adjust, and continue. Progress replaces perfection as the goal. Over time, reflection sharpens judgment. We recognize patterns earlier. We correct course faster. Emotional spirals shorten because awareness intervenes before excess takes hold. Others look outward for validation. We look inward for alignment. Praise does not inflate us. Criticism does not destroy us. Our standards remain internal. Through daily reflection, life becomes coherent. Each day connects to the next in purpose, and in that continuity, practiced faithfully, we build a self that grows wiser, calmer, and stronger with every passing morning. Principle number 12. Remember that you are temporary. Act accordingly. After reflection sharpens our awareness, the final truth stands before us, unyielding and clarifying. Our time is limited, not abstractly, not someday, but now. Each morning we rise closer to the end than we were yesterday. This awareness is not meant to frighten us. It is meant to awaken us. We live poorly when we imagine we have endless time. We postpone courage, we delay discipline, we tolerate what degrades us. Forgetting our impermanence is the quiet root of mediocrity. Remembering it restores urgency and precision to every choice. One emperor wrote to himself with brutal simplicity, "You could leave life right now." He did not write this to darken his spirit, but to focus it. When time is finite, triviality loses its appeal. What matters becomes unmistakably clear. Destructive emotions thrive on the illusion of endless tomorrows. Resentment assumes there will always be time to make peace later. Laziness assumes there will always be another chance. Fear assumes postponement is harmless. Mortality dissolves these lies. Each morning we ask ourselves, if this were my last day, would this be how I choose to think, speak, and act? This question cuts through distraction with surgical force. It reminds us that dignity is not something we earn later. It is something we practice now. This awareness does not strip life of joy. It intensifies it. Gratitude deepens when moments are not assumed. Presence sharpens when attention is no longer scattered. Love becomes more honest when it is no longer postponed. A wise voice once warned that it is not death we should fear, but living without direction. Remembering our limits gives our lives shape. We stop drifting, we begin choosing. When mortality is kept close, ego weakens. Pettiness feels embarrassing, vanity feels wasteful. We conserve energy for what strengthens character and steadies the soul. Others may live as though they have endless time to correct themselves. We do not. And because of this, we speak truth sooner, act justly now, and refuse to squander the day. To remember that we are temporary is not to despair, it is to live awake. Each morning becomes meaningful. Each action carries weight. And in this clear-eyed acceptance of our limits, we discover a strange freedom, the freedom to live fully, deliberately, and without regret while time is still ours. Principle number 13, serve the whole. Without losing the self. After we confront our mortality, another responsibility becomes unavoidable: how we relate to others. We are not isolated minds moving through a private universe. We are parts of a larger order. Each morning we step into a shared world where our actions ripple beyond ourselves. The greatest misunderstanding is to believe that self-mastery leads to withdrawal. It does not. It leads to usefulness. Discipline that serves only the ego rots into arrogance. Strength finds its highest expression when it contributes to something larger than the self. One ancient ruler reminded himself that what does not benefit the hive does not benefit the bee. We are built for cooperation, fairness, and mutual reliance. To act against this nature is to act against reason itself. Yet service does not mean self-erasure. We do not surrender judgment, boundaries, or principle to please others. True service is grounded in virtue, not approval. We help without resentment. We give without dependence. Destructive emotions often arise from misaligned social bonds. Bitterness grows when we give to be praised. Exhaustion follows when we serve without restraint. Discipline restores balance. Service guided by reason, not guilt. Each morning we ask not, "What can I extract from today?" but "What can I contribute without betraying myself?" This question transforms work into duty and duty into meaning. A teacher once warned that living only for oneself shrinks the soul. Isolation feeds obsession. Service broadens perspective. Petty concerns fade when our attention moves beyond personal grievance. Over time, this principle steadies our relationships. We become reliable without becoming submissive, generous without being exploited, firm without cruelty. Others may chase importance through domination or validation. We find it through usefulness. Our worth is measured not by applause, but by integrity in contribution. When we serve the whole without losing the self, life gains coherence. We stand rooted in our values while moving in harmony with others. And in that balance, practiced each morning, we fulfill both our private discipline and our shared human duty. Principle number 14. Live each day as a complete life. After all principles are learned, tested, and lived, one final posture remains: the way we hold the day itself. Not as a fragment of some future life, but as a whole. Each morning we are given a complete unit of existence. How we live this day is how we live our life. Most people postpone life. They wait for clarity, success, peace, or permission. In doing so, they abandon the only time that is ever available. The disciplined mind does not wait. It enters the day fully aware that nothing else is guaranteed. One ancient voice reminded us that life is made up of moments, not years. To waste today is to waste life in miniature. When we understand this, urgency and calm coexist. We act without panic and without delay. Destructive emotions lose their power when the day is treated as complete. Regret fades when nothing is postponed. Anxiety weakens when attention is anchored to now. We are no longer living half in memory and half in anticipation. Each morning we ask ourselves, if this day were a life in itself, how would I conduct it? This question strips away triviality. It forces intention into every action, word, and thought. This does not mean frenzy or excess. It means presence. We work with focus. We speak with care. We rest without guilt. We leave nothing essential undone, not because we fear death, but because we respect time. A Roman thinker advised not to live as though we had endless tomorrows. To complete the day honorably is to live without loose ends in the soul. Sleep comes easier when nothing important has been avoided. Over time, days lived fully stack into a life lived well. There is no dramatic transformation, only quiet consistency. Character forms in repetition, not in grand declarations. Others chase meaning across years. We build it daily. Others seek fulfillment in outcomes. We find it in conduct. To live each day as a complete life is to stop bargaining with time. When the final morning arrives, it will find us familiar with how to live. Calm, intentional, whole. Dear viewers, if there is one truth that ties all 14 principles together, it is this. Real strength is never accidental. It is built quietly, deliberately, and repeatedly. Stoicism does not promise an easier life. It offers a stronger inner posture toward life. Every principle you've heard points back to the same foundation: discipline over impulse, self-command over reaction, daily practice over empty intention. You do not become resilient in moments of crisis. You become resilient in the ordinary moments, in how you think when no one is watching, how you respond when nothing forces you to, and how you train your mind before it is tested. This is how a life changes forever, not through sudden breakthroughs, but through consistent alignment between thought, action, and character. Take a moment now to reflect. Which principle struck you the hardest? Which one revealed something uncomfortable, but true? And more importantly, how will you apply it today, not someday? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them, I value them, and your reflections sharpen this space for everyone committed to self-mastery. In a few days, another focused and practical Stoic lesson will be uploaded. If this path matters to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. If this lesson brought clarity, strength, or restraint into your thinking, support the channel by liking the video and sharing it with someone who is working on mastering themselves. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to live with discipline in a world that rewards reaction. Stay steady, stay deliberate, and keep building the kind of strength that cannot be taken from you.